Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 80th episode of the Spiritual Brainstorm. In this episode, I'll be talking about revisiting the concept of inside outside. And if you just joined this channel, I really encourage you to watch the videos in order, or at least a couple, 5 or 6 latest videos, because I'm going to start really directly and you may be lost. So we'll see how this goes. So, if you've followed this channel, you're very familiar with this inside outside kind of logic. But I'll try to make this as clear as possible. So let's start from the living cell perspective. When the first living cell or unicellular organism appeared on this planet, what was its outside reality? What was its outside experience? So this is inside, the inside column. This is the outside column. Well, the living cell was actually in the world of chemistry, interacting with a level of chemistry, which I will say is the chemistry network, or the network created by the interactions of all the different chemical elements, which, when combined with each other, creates the chemical version of our planet. So the chemical version of our planet is like volcanoes, storms, and seas. So there's that network, which forms a coherent sort of global reality, the chemical reality. And of course, the living cell inside is the world of biology. That is a really novel and unique way that chemicals interact with each other inside of the cell, which is completely different from volcanoes or storms. It represents the harmonious, stable way that these chemical elements can interact, to a point where which we don't call it harmonious chemistry, we actually call it biology, because there's no way that you can explain exhaustively what happens within a cell just from the chemical perspective. So it's a new level that is born. And as these organisms, this unicellular organisms, sort of start interacting with each other, they form a new network on top of the chemistry network. And so it's almost as if you had different layers of reality that are built one on top of each other, as if this was the chemistry brain of our planet and this was the biology brain of our planet, and they have certain rules or ways of interacting with each other. And the stronger the network of biology, the bigger of an influence it has over the networks below it. That is the chemical version of our planet and the physical version of our planet, etc. And you can see that as more and more of these cells appear, what happens is that you have much less chaotic chemical reactions on the planet. So the harmony that exists within the cell is projected outside, and now you have harmony and biology that emerges thanks to the reinforced network of cells that populate the planet, or life, which ultimately goes as far as, here you have multicellular organisms, and they then form stronger and stronger networks to the point where they form animals and all that stuff, which is just a dual process of harmonizing or projecting the harmony that you have inside on the outside to the point of forming the most complex version of a multicellular organism, which is again the bridge between two different worlds. So the living cell is the bridge between biology and chemistry. It is it is like a self-contained harmonious chemical reaction, and the human has the potential for a harmonious self contained interaction with biology with itself, because we can consciously choose how we behave towards one another. And so we sort of transcend the chaotic ecosystem kind of thing, where it all happens almost in a predetermined fashion, just like volcanoes and storms on a chemical planet, which are not conscious, they're just doing their thing. And so ecosystems also are just doing their thing. You have balance between the animals, the insects, the plants, and all that functions, but there isn't necessarily a conscious kind of element in that. It's more like something that is encoded in them, a balance that finds a balance that emerges naturally, so to speak. But we have the capacity to really throw off that balance or create that balance artificially, almost willingly. Just like you could say that what is unique in biology is that it can consciously create harmony of the chemical elements inside of it, or chaos. Of course, you don't see it creating chaos, otherwise, those are self destructive cells. You don't see it from our perspective because that has been harmonized for a long time already. And the same happens here. But let me just here underline what is the next step. So we live in the world of biology. That is our outside. Here is the world of biology that we evolve in. We started with a world that was filled with animals, plants, insects, all of these, basically life. That is how we see the world. And all of the other networks as well. We also see, of course, the world of chemistry. We also see, the tides, the rocks, and all that stuff. We're very far removed from the world of physics. We don't really see atoms at our level, but we see those two levels, perhaps physics as well, but only, I guess, via things like gravity, because we're very far remote. As the network that we create as humans is very far removed from those things. But what is our inside then? I mean, on the outside, we experience the world of biology, which is all that we are, our body, basically. All of we have inside of us, we have chemistry, we have biology, we have physics. All of that are elements that are constitutive parts of our body. So we actually have all of these networks within us. Now, what is it that we have on the outside? It is the world of thought, ideas, imagination. Imagination. That is what we have on the inside, as experienced within our minds. We don't yet see a sort of physical manifestation of our ideas, although actually we do, but with a lag. So, again, the rule is as such: we form a network, humans, the human network, and the more powerful the network, that is, the more humans are interconnected, now more than ever with the internet, the more our thoughts actually permeate on the outside, and we start living in the world of thought, of ideas, of imagination projected on the outside that actually have a physical sort of element to them that manifest physically. And you might think this is crazy, but it's everything that surrounds you. Like, for instance, if you have a chair in your room, the chair does not belong to the world of biology. It doesn't exist. Or your table, or your computer, or your radiator, or your house. None of these things, or even more importantly, for instance, democracy, your government, all of those are a projection or a permeation of our thoughts on the outside, a manifestation, manifested thought. And so, again, with the hierarchy and the rules here about just how much power we have as a network to influence the networks below us, depends on the strength of our network and the harmony in our network, especially harmony, because that's the rule. If the cell, for instance, doesn't find harmony on the inside, it has no power over the outside. And so here's one little thing that I wanted to give you as an example. When you pick up a glass of water, how do you experience that action? Do you actually consciously sort of get the information of all the energy that is spent by your cells and the muscles in your arms in picking up that glass? Or do you consciously sort of are aware of all the chemical reactions and all the energy that needs to be consumed and exchanged in order and burned in order for you to make that movement in terms of thermodynamics? I know, like heat, dissipation, whatever. I don't even know the details. Do you even perceive the electromagnetic energy and exchange between the atoms at the tip of your fingers and the atoms that are part of the glass for you to be able to touch it, hold on to it, and pick it up and counteract the force of gravity with your fingers? And of course, you're not aware of any of this. Picking up a glass of water is a seamless, natural experience that you don't even think about. And the reason being is that this network of biology and all of the interactions between the cells have been tweaked and perfected over billions of years to the point where it becomes an unconscious and normal and natural mechanism. They have been also it's they've reached a certain collective harmony and understanding in order to form a multicellular organism like yourself, and you allowing to do all these actions seamlessly thanks to the harmony they've reached. Now, you could say that they've replicated the harmony that exists on the inside, the way that their own the chemistry within them is harmonious. The interactions of the different chemical elements within it are harmonious on the outside, and that is what allows you to carry out those actions. If you actually transform all the cells in your body into individual cells, like say they're all now stem cells or single celled organisms, instead of constituting your body, what how could they could never actually exert that kind of action of picking up your glass, because they would never be able to have this kind of coherent will that is manifested through the existence of your body as a global collective organism. And so um, we live in our own reality, which is the multicellular version or network of the human beings. If we destroy ourselves, it's just the disappearance of this network, and our planet just downgrades to another network, which is this one. And then maybe it will recreate another network sometime in the future with other beings like us that reach a level of consciousness that is bordering, that is the bridge between the world of biology and the world of thought, ideas, imagination. Now, this is why it's so important in spirituality and other kind of circles to gain control, and not control in the bad way, but really like um, and a kind of let's say self control over our thoughts, ideas, and all this non duality, all of these teachings that are about pacifying the mind are specifically about that. Because if we are not stable within our minds, within our individual minds that generate thoughts, and there's a war between concepts within our minds, like for instance, a war between the idea of communism versus capitalism. And those two ideas are virtually fighting on the inside. Of course, there are also that then is projected on the outside. You also have that battle on the outside. But if it's already a battle on the inside, how can it not be a battle on the outside? Just like if a single celled organism was struggling with its chemistry on the inside, its outside experience, which would be that of the network of multicellular organisms, would also be chaotic. And so the stability within is projected as a stability without. If we're not stable in our thoughts, ideas, even emotions as well, then our outside is going to be chaotic as well. And that's why if each individual human works on stabilizing themselves and works on themselves, they help every single other person because we're in a network and the network is only as strong as its individual members. Um, and of course, we can try to affect the network as a whole. That's basically what I'm doing with these videos. But that doesn't preclude the fact that I have to work a lot on myself. And believe me, there is a lot of work to do because I very often feel frustrated with this 3D reality, sometimes depressed, discouraged. I mean, all of these things are things that I'm still struggling with and that will need to be worked on at my level, regardless of what I'm saying in my videos and how interesting they are. So, what is then 5D? 5D is the moment where this network reaches maturity, where it actually locks in and creates something higher, which is a global being, a global awareness, a global consciousness, which emerges from the network between all of humanity, or at least a part of humanity. And there is a kind of threshold there, just like there is certain preconditions for the number of chemical balanced and harmonious chemical interactions that need to happen within a living cell to make it a living cell. Like an amino acid and protein can behave in a nice way towards each other, that doesn't make them a living cell. A living cell really has a number of set requirements before it is a living cell, like an external membrane, an input output kind of energy system, a self replication system where you have DNA and you can multiply, and all these things. Now, we know what that list is for the living cell because we can observe it, we can study it. For us as a collective global organism made up of us as its cells, humanity, humans, it's much less self evident how many humans have to be on the network, how far advanced they have to be. But ultimately, the more general kind of aim or goal is reaching harmony in our daily interactions with each other, and that is quite simple as a overarching objective. It doesn't require to really think about it too hard. And of course, harmony on the inside and harmony on the outside, and both are kind of tied and linked. um, and so basically what that means is that that conscious being that we're a part of will have a power, will actually be a network of the network that will form at that point of all of humanity will have a power over reality which will be really, really insane. And the form that it takes is not as important as what it actually manifests as. So, for instance, let me give you an example. About 2 or 3 thousand years ago, the biggest networks humanity could form was about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 individuals. You didn't have city states that were bigger than that. But the bigger the city, the bigger the human network, which sort of formed a collective awareness of being one. Like, for instance, the Greek city states, the Roman city states. There were a lot of people there, and they knew consciously that they were a part of the same network. Their power over reality matched the power of their network. And so, um, at that level, for instance, to make a chair, you had it manifests as like if you have let's say you have a group of like just 10 individuals, hunter gatherers. They're a very small network, and so that translates in the form as power over reality as very primitive tools, which are just the symbolic form for you to experience your power over shaping reality. Like you'd have to use a silex to sort of, scrub the branches and stuff, and create very primitive tools. When you create a bigger network, like 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 individuals, then you get more sophisticated tools, which in turn makes you able to build these big cities and create a chair much more easily. And when you create networks of millions upon millions upon millions of individuals, as now, then you can create factories which spew out automatically 1,000 chairs an hour, using machines and robots. But is that a fact of technology and progress, or is that a fact of simply a more powerful human network where more and more humans are kind of consciously aware that they are participating, that they're part of a network? Right now, in most schools, like I said, 99.999% schools in the world, teach about the planet, about the different continents, the countries, the languages. So we are multicultural, and we start to develop a planetary consciousness, awareness that we're one human on a planet where there are like 7 billion other humans just like us. And instead of saying it's us and them, which would separate and split the network and create little sub networks which are not interlinked, you create one huge network which has a much more power over reality, and therefore which can more and more manifest our thoughts and ideas in a faster and faster way, where there's less and less lag with the impact that we have on the outside, the reality that we see. So once that that we reach the conditions for forming a global collective organism which is conscious of itself and experiences itself as one consciousness, one unit, just like we consider ourselves to be one unit, not 10,000 billion individuals that somehow form a unit. We don't think of us that way. We don't have 10,000 billion different personalities. Each personality links to each individual cell. That is not our experience of reality. So right now, like what I said with this inside-outside relationship, it has a very useful way of analyzing reality, because therefore we can mirror the only process that we know of, each human, of this process, and just assume that we've just reproduced at a higher level what we have within as far as wisdom. So, process of birth is the only experience that every single one of us has experienced, from transitioning from one reality to another. One where we are arguably unconscious, that is, the baby has its eyes closed, it has very little self-awareness, awareness that it is what it is. Well, first of all, it doesn't even know what it is. And probably the baby's consciousness is more projected into its parts rather than on its whole. It doesn't know that it is a whole, that it is one. That happens as the child grows after birth. Or birth is actually the symbolic manifestation that happens when the baby first has that thought of actually being a whole, and functioning as a whole, like all the organs functioning together. All of these things are like, the birth is the manifestation of reaching that threshold between being just separate organs working separately and being a global collective organism. And so we're reproducing the same kind of experience on the outside. So, as I've explained in other videos, contractions are a series of crises that feel very painful, which can be the 2008 financial crises, the current coronavirus crises, and they take whatever form is adapted to whatever primary belief systems the individual parts have. So, because we're in a materialist dogma right now, then those symbolic processes of birth are going to manifest as a virus, because it is something that we can understand and give a form to, rather than some kind of weird esoteric energy, whatever. Um, it can be that, but it depends. Like, for instance, maybe some channelers, very spiritual people that have a different kind of interface with reality, don't perceive the virus as a virus, but perceive it as information that is affecting us in one way or another, just like contractions are an information or a signal sent to the baby saying it's time. It's time that you hurry up and put the finishing touches on functioning like a global unit because things are about to change big time. But so 5D, the being that we're going to be just the cells of, is going to live in a world where thoughts are by default part of its outside, and its inside, that being that we are part of, is going to live in it's going to experience a world from the inside which is beyond imagination, beyond thought. And what that is hard to tell because our thoughts are clearly beyond biology. You cannot explain democracy, the concept of democracy, by just saying, well, it's just this weird arrangement in your brain, between these neurons. It is a concept that exists in our minds, and you would have a very tough time to explain it in biological terms. And similarly, that being that we're a part of is going to experience from the inside something that is beyond imagination and thought. A world, an experience that is beyond imagination and thought. What that is, wow, I don't know. But the point that is really important is that from the inside, once we finalize, we put the final touches and become that network, then from the inside we'll experience really paradise. Because by aligning our thoughts and controlling our thoughts and making them harmonious, and stop having thoughts that are battling with each other in our minds, then our reality will become really magical, and it will manifest as this. Like, for instance, if you see a baby crawling from one part of the room to another part and taking a toy, it will be the same experience of us deciding that we want to go on vacation to Jupiter and doing it in a day. Or, simply the speed at which a baby sort of interacts with reality is the speed that we would start manifesting ideas in our reality and thoughts. It's not going to be as fast as instant manifestation, like in your dreams, like a lucid dream where you think of something and it happens, but it's going to be pretty darn fast. Um, and that's of course in 100 plus years. So no need to worry about that because the priority right now is harmony. Now, a couple more things I wanted to say is, if we're born into the fifth dimension, then this planet, which to us in 3D is just a rock with animals on it, suddenly becomes a completely different being, a 5D version of this planet, where the resources are no longer controlled by a centralized organism like the placenta, which is the governments, the elites, whatever, where we don't feel like we're constrained for resources, and where we're really taken care of appropriately. Like, we receive regularly the milk, which is, you could say it's like free energy or energy from the void, with oxygen, of course, in the lungs. That's more like the free energy from the void. But then milk is more like even some form of energy that I don't even know what form it would take in our reality. Maybe certain decentralized crypto assets. I don't even know. Um, but it's really important, therefore, that when I'm saying that we need to reach self-control and harmony also in how we treat our children. Because if, for instance, in our reality, the concept of family and taking care of our children is mommy and daddy have really important things to do, like work and a career and success and this and this and that, and we'll just pay a nanny to take care of the baby, then don't forget that since there is an inside and outside correlation, it will also manifest for us. That experience will also manifest for us as we are born as a collective global organism. So that could manifest it basically the 5D version of this planet just kicking us out of Earth and giving us to the Pleiadians to babysit us until we're ready to, crawl over the universe, like or give like it's hard to really explain because these are just metaphors. But all this talk about alien civilizations controlling us and um, babysitting us basically because we are inferior consciousnesses is also linked to the way we treat our children. And so, if as parents we treat them as immature, stupid organisms that we don't want to spend too much effort nurturing and taking care of and raising with all the loving care, why would you think that the 5D version of our planet that we're going to manifest as we get outside is going to be this caring, loving parent if we are not capable of doing that ourselves with our children? And that's why I think there are key family values that are coming back to the fore with much progress at European level. That's from my perspective about parental leave, about reconciling work and family life, about working less and having more time for taking care of your children and your family. Those are really important steps because ultimately, I would not like to experience our own birth with the same coldness that some parents treat their kids in today's world, and like with the lack of love and nurturing. Of course, that's changing, but still, I think that's an important key point. Another point that I wanted to stress is that all these people that are talking, for instance, about reptilians controlling us or all kinds of negative um, things that could happen to humanity is the same kind of mirror experience as a baby that is born and all the dangers that a baby can be exposed to in the biological world that it's living in. And so the mother and the father to the baby are are there to protect it from all of the mishaps of the biological world, which it is yet not apt at navigating from its immature sort of vantage point. And so, us as a collective global organism, if like the collective global organism that we're going to be a part of, even if we reach harmony, maybe it would start to become curious from its perspectives, its conscious perspective about, hey, what is this thought that resides in my sort of brain, which would be the collective ideas that emerge from the network of all humanity of reptilians controlling us? Maybe I want to try that. And it would be the same as, for instance, a kid or a baby watching a hot stove and wanting to place their hands on it and burning themselves. So that is something that they're attracted to because they don't know that it's going to hurt them yet. Even though, although, if we harmonize our thoughts, ideas, and imagination, that will become the 5D version of instincts, um, the basis for instincts that are going to be present in that conscious organism. The instinct, for instance, of a baby to be scared of heights, for instance, is an instinct that is implanted there by the collective experience of all of biology, of the world of biology, that is implanted, that is inside of it as wisdom, collective wisdom that has been accumulated for billions and billions of years. And we have accumulated experience in the world of thought and interactions between our thoughts and ideas on the outside, like all the wars, all the terrible things happening to us, all the violence and stuff, to know kind of instinctively when an idea feels good to us or not. And that is going to manifest as pain, for instance, or a painful experience um, at the level of sorry if you hear my son giggling because he just woke up. Anyways, pain or joy, for instance, emotions, but at the level of that global collective organism, as signals to say, hey, maybe it's not a good idea to actually wanting to experience or sort of move towards, like almost physically move towards the physical embodiment of the experience of interacting with violent reptilians. Just like it's not a good idea for a baby to crawl over to a tiger and play with its tail on the biology level. And so for some, that's why it's also really important to connect to our the 5D version of our planet, which hopefully is nurturing and caring, and also the 5D version of our father, which is the sun. So our planet is our mother, the sun is our father, the 5D version, of course. Um, like basically, the 3D physical sun is like the information for fertilizing the planet, just like the spermatozoa is the information at the biological level of fertilizing the ovum. For humans, the sun is basically our the impetus, the information for humanity to or humanoid conscious humanoid beings to um, emerge out of biology. And that, of course, manifests in the form subjectively as the Anunnakis that reproduced with apes. I don't know how many million years ago and created us as a civilization. But again, do not get hung up on the form. It's more important to understand the logic. Um, so again, a good relationship with our mother, a good relationship with our father, which normally are going to help us orient ourselves, actually, they're actually going to help the collective conscious being that we are going to manifest to help it orient itself in a 5D environment, and then we will get to enjoy the ride and the experience. And of course, we are going to send these pain and joy signals to that organism to say, if, for instance, it goes and experiences reptilians and whatever, and a million people, human beings, are enslaved and put in cages or whatever, that's going to be very painful to that organism, and it's going to put an end to that via, for instance, either screaming, yelling, and then the parents come to the rescue and heal the baby or help the baby being healed. And that would manifest on the outside as, Pleiadians coming to the rescue and deliver, like freeing us from the clutches of the evil reptilians. Again, doesn't really matter. It's the logic that counts. Um, what else did I want to say? I'm sorry, this is a lengthy video, but it's really important, I think, to grasp. And it's, I can see it's quite chaotic from all the stuff that I drew. Hopefully, you'll be able to make sense of it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think we're reaching towards the end, but basically, it's connecting to our mother and our father in 5D, which is the 5D version of this planet and the 5D version of the sun, is a nice way for us to also sort of be prepared and to live this experience of our birth in a better way. Like if the baby and the mother are synchronized during the birth process and are synchronized afterwards also, then the whole experience is much more seamless rather than when there's resistance and a battle and a conscious battle between the two. So I might explore this further because I've actually published a previous version of this video, but there was some kind of bug with the sound. Hopefully this time it'll work. Um, but if I've forgotten anything, then I'll just post another video and with complementary information. So thanks a lot for listening. If you have any kind of questions, feel free to ask, and talk to you in the next video.